Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the Healing and Freedom Journey. Mark and Melissa DeJesus in the house.
We are here.
We are here.
We are here.
And we're ready to address a question today, and I think it's going to take us in some interesting directions because there's a lot that we relate to in this question.
Well, I was like, when I read it, I'm like, did you write this?
Yeah,
we could have wrote this.
We're on a journey ourselves, and so it.
So this will be cathartic, hopefully for you and us.
Right. If you have questions that you want to submit, you can certainly go to markdejesus.com/questions, and you can either send a question written or you can send an audio question.
And I would always recommend that before you type out a question, even in the comment section, go to markdejesus.com and search the topics, because a lot of the time we do have material related to your question.
Yeah. The majority of questions that come in, there's a lot of material that has covered what's being asked, especially like in the OCD areas, perfectionism areas. Yeah. People write and say, how do I receive God's love more? How do I connect to God's love? It's probably 80% of our material is down those lines. Lots of OCD related material, stuff like that mental health stuff that you can go through and walk through. But we love questions. We love to address questions. You and I, in our discussions together, have been down this vein that will continue. Lord willing, the creek don't rise. On family
Somebody
stuff.
asked for a T-shirt, by the way.
Lord willing.
Somebody wants merch. I'm on it.
I think that if
some point we'll do it.
If we did it, Lord willing.
It would be Laud, Lawd.
Correct.
Laud.
Yeah, and then we would get lots of writings that we're not writing.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. That's fun. So anyway, we've been on this
TBD.
we've been on this vein of addressing family brokenness, healing through family brokenness, and working through that. And so we'll continue on some themes. Some of them are still marinating and things we're going to discuss and things we've learned and what's been helpful in the journey. We've talked a lot about healing father wounds, mother wounds, family brokenness. We'll talk about sibling stuff. We'll probably talk about neglect. That's going to be a big one. Being raised with the reality of emotionally immature parents. That's an interesting subject that I think will be helpful for us to dive into.
Wolves?
What? Say that again.
Raised by wolves.
Yes, they're raised
by wolves.
Well, sometimes I say that
if you have the neglect, it's like
you'll ask me a question. I'll say, "Well, the wolves told me."
Right. That's been a joke.
So I think today's going to get into a lot of stuff. It's going to get into family misunderstanding. It's going to get into being misunderstood by family, feeling
and others,
feeling accused,
right?
Feeling just a lot of stuff here. And so I think that it'd be good for us to navigate. What I'm going to do is I'll read through this question, and then what we're going to do is kind of respond to it line by line after. How do you feel about that?
Let's do it.
Because
whatever works.
Yeah.
We'll make it happen.
So let's bring it up here. Okay, so here's the question that came in. It says, my wife and I are wondering if you have any resources on how to not be so affected by false accusation or how to overcome it. And I think when the question was originally sent in, it was like this and maybe another sentence. So I asked for a little more clarity. So then they added to the question, which I appreciate. We can go a little bit further. So basically, we are looking for how to better equip ourselves to overcome the mental and emotional spinning. We talk about spinning a lot. When accusation happens in life, it hurts really badly for both of us when we are not understood, especially by toxic loved ones. So that's going to give context here. There's a sense of feeling accused, misunderstood by family members that are pretty toxic. It hurts to the point where our internal voices have been condemning us and saying, what if you really are X, Y, and Z? This leads to obsessive checking internally and an endless loop of validation seeking, which we try not to feed very much. We stand by one another patiently in love, and we fight this together. Yet we notice that we can both spin out at times, and we catch each other. We acknowledge that it feels quite lonely. Maybe this is just part of the process and what we have to keep doing, and that's okay. We continually forgive the accusers, bless them, release them. And we had to go no contact with a few of our truly narcissistic parents. Yet the pain and confusion / spinning over verbal accusation still remains years after. In other words, we are looking for tools for how to stop defending oneself and proving oneself against both false accusation in thoughts, like an OCD, and real accusations with people. We're looking for general wisdom for when to speak and when to remain silent against accusation. Further examples, we can get trapped into going great lengths into trying to figure out why people abused us or accused us wrongly. This answer can never be solved, of course. 2, we also spin over if we should have said something in a certain way. Oh, goodness.
Yeah. I understand all of this.
We do. In a past conflict and accusing ourselves if it, quote, if it really is our fault, unquote, that an abusive person won't turn around so that we can have fellowship and real relationship healing. We acknowledge that this is false burden bearing and codependency we're both healing from in our toxic family experiences, but we are struggling with how to apply freedom in our everyday thoughts. So we're going to go back through this. And again, if you want to send in questions, markdejesus.com /questions, and you can send yours in and maybe it'll make the episode. And so when I saw this question, my immediate, when I saw the added statements and all of what I read there, the first thing I said is, we got to talk about this, you and I. And your thought was like,
we could have wrote the question.
We could have wrote the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Like every line.
Yeah, and I think that in looking through what's happening here, you have looks like a couple that both struggle with OCD. And so there's spinning that goes on. There's upbringing with narcissism. There's upbringing with neglect. And then within that, there's all these accusations that fly. Some of them are like actual accusations that are spoken to you. There are others you spin about in your head that are your...
You'll know. You know how people interact with you or how they respond to you.
Right.
You're like, something ain't right here. There, yeah.
Right.
Which can be rejection, however,
What I was going to say is that it's hard to even know the difference. Was it something they said? Was it me?
Right.
Either way, you're spinning.
Right. Right.
And so I first want to say this journey, whether you're obsessive compulsive at an intense level or not, I think a lot of honest people can relate to this.
Totally.
Of being around family members and just not being understood and feeling misunderstood. I feel like for me, just that area alone has at times been kryptonite of like not feeling like you're giving me that look.
Because it's one of our big pains over the years.
Right.
It's a very big pain. And I think too, for us, a lot of this was heightened in pastoring. Because in the pastoring world, there's a lot of things that that other people don't know, that people assume, accuse, they generate their own stories about you and why are you reacting and why are you not doing this or why are you doing that you can't just tell your side a lot of the times.
Right.
So not only does it happen with family, but you could be, whether it's a job or ministry, that this is a very big predominant thing of being misunderstood.
Yeah, I think that's where the conversation could start in this, is like how much the need to be understood pokes at us. I have most of my life struggled with feeling misunderstood. And I feel like as a guy who had a sensitive heart and had certain tendencies and it was like that were good things, but also sensitivities that would like make me prone to anxiety, obsessiveness. And I felt like I was just surviving through the whole thing. And being misunderstood is a massive, massive trigger wound that can really inflame. We talk about the rejection mindset. It really inflames rejection. And for me, what it would cause me to do is over-explain, over-talk, over-teach. Like, you could go into everything, even down to, like, if I talk to an audience and I get some feedback from them, and I'm like, that's not what I meant.
Right.
Right? I feel that a lot. I'm like, wait, the way you're interpreting, this happens constantly in my materials, but even back in our pastoring work, people come, I appreciate your message, and this is what I got out of it. And I was like, wow, that wasn't what I was.
And I'm now afraid of you because the way you're twisting.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I'm now afraid of you. Yeah, that's honest, because it's like, the way you took that makes me nervous of what else you're gonna take right. that I'm not saying.
Right. So go ahead.
Let me just
you
follow
do that, babe. Go ahead.
You do that, babe. So it's like this wrapped me into just a deep stranglehold, where my reaction to that is, I need to preach this better. So then I would teach more, teach longer, teach again, and I'm in this, like, trying to say it better. Now, that's
dot your I's and cross your T's in every way, and it fed upset, right?
Yeah, and that wants to follow me into online content, of, like, making sure I say it, because then the way people take it, and then I hear their grid. Because you can, when somebody responds, like, in the comment section in a certain way, it's like their grid pokes out. Like, wow, you can see they're highly judgmental. They're argumentative. They've been abused. You can see the patterns, right? And then it's like, I have this prevailing thought that I'm good at explaining things. So if I can just explain this, you're going to be okay. And we're going to be okay. And we're all going to be okay. And I say this in response to this question, because I think this is helpful, but also in general, that is not true. We have this, if I just explain myself, everyone will understand. So that misunderstanding drives the need to explain. And then it feels like you're talking more. It gets worse as you're talking. Then it creates more traps and more things. It's like this spinning out that goes on. So it applied in ministry, it applied in pastoring, it can want to apply now. Family is very difficult, because we've always been this long arc of family, not really always understanding, like, what it is that we're doing.
Correct.
And really connecting to our journey and what we've stepped out in.
Right. I think what this pings at many things, but you are not truly loved. It pings for me that you're not truly loved and safe in who you are.
Right.
So then it goes, I'm not fully connected because they don't know me. They don't know me because they don't take the time to know me and love me. And it pings and triggers so many things about the lack of relational connection.
Yep.
And truly being just loved and accepted.
It brings out the neglect in our journeys. All of us, in recognizing where that neglect has impact. And neglect is just so dangerous, because it's not taking the time to understand. Because I can immediately know in your question, there isn't that space of really seeking to understand, of really seeking to hear you out, to want to know more. It's amazing how in a lot of conversations, whether it's family or just with other Christians, of how you can go through life and people just aren't really aware of what's happening or what's going on.
People don't ask. Right. How many people do we interact with that we're like, they ask nothing about us? Like, I know we've talked about this a lot, but it goes into that. People want to tell you their stuff, their story, their things. They don't say, hey, what about this? How was that for you guys? Hey, I never really understood. Could you help me? people don't ask. So then you're, like me, I'm standing in the shower and I'm spinning over the conversations that I want to have. And they're all around making people understand me and my side. I shouldn't say my side, but like, no, you don't understand why this happened.
I think that being misunderstood can be so intense. At times, it's greatly threatened my mental health. I'll be very honest.
Yes.
Like where you feel like you're being closed in an isolation chamber of neglect. And you and I, like in our journey of what we're trying to minister and what we're trying to do, we have such great feedback we get from people. We're honored at what people have shared and said. We've also gone through a lot of journey where just constantly being misunderstood. Like, so what is it you do? You counselors or something? You going to counseling? You like, what do you? Oh, your fathers love people, or you're people have a tendency to want to like quick label. They need to find like a quick label. Like, oh, you do this, you're that. And they did that with Jesus, right? When Jesus said to Peter, "Who do men say that I am?" They say, "Well, they say you're Jeremiah, you're this, or you're Elijah, or whatever." He said, "You're a good like we want to like put the quick thing. You're a plumber. You do home. That's who you are." And it's like, first of all, what you do is not who you are. That's a whole subject in itself. We're understanding that we're sons and daughters, and recognizing that identity, but we've gone through this this evolving process of growing what we are passionate about and then not feeling like people understand it.
Right.
So then it leads you to stuff. You either over explain or you just kind of struggle with the pain and go, well, what do I do with this?
I know this is a slight trigger for me, but I'm gonna ask you, like when people are like they listen to old stuff because there's been so much of they see you through an old lens. They like the pastor Mark that gets on stage, or they like or the speaker that gets on stage and like, and you're like, no, I'm not just that. Like our message, who we are, everything has evolved, and you want to be understood in where we are now.
Yeah.
Well, people didn't really.
Yeah, because the way that I talk and the way that I teach is a lot different. In many ways, the same, but in a lot of ways different than 15 years ago. But it's like, yeah, you can get kind of held to that.
Right. So I'm wondering in their story, especially with their family, because it seems to definitely be around that theme of family. Is that something for their journey that it's like, you have grown together, and it. Even by your statement of we stand by one another patiently in love, which that is just beautiful that you are like that in your marriage. And I applaud that, because if you didn't have each other for that, that's a nightmare. But, has this been a journey for you where you've grown together? People have watched it and not understood, and don't ask. Right.
I got a little into the ministry tangent. So what you're saying is
I'm going back to I'm bringing it back here.
You're bringing it back to I'm saying thank you for that, because really the theme here is a couple that says we want to heal.
Right.
We want to grow. We want to grow together. We want to be healthy. And that right there works against the generational familial pattern. It like just people say, I want to like heal and be free. And you think everyone around you is going to go, and it feels weird when it's like, right. you get a disruption. And so what you're wanting is a support. It's very like hard for the mind to adjust to wait. Family's supposed to be supportive, and I want to go and land, but yet I can't talk about things, can't work through things. And when I leave, I'm spinning. And I'm either spinning because no one asked, or I'm spinning because accusations are brought and things aren't working. And this is all very, very unhealthy. So you walk away spinning about yourself, and it doesn't give any room for compassion and grace to go, you know what, talking to them is kind of goofy, or talking to them is really goofy. Mm-hmm. And it's not about, it's all them. Sometimes we look to blame.
Right.
It's all me. I'm broken. They're broken. But you know what? Talking to them in these areas is not really that great.
Right.
Not really that fruitful.
Right. I understand though what they're saying of, you want to be loving and that arrow comes back at yourself and you're constantly judging yourself. Well, I'm going to judge myself first so that I can make sure, am I doing something that I need to be accountable for? Which, yeah, there's a part of that. That's an admirable thing. But a lot of this is the fact that I would venture to say, if you're saying narcissistic parents and all that stuff, the journey of recognizing what neglect has done in your own lives, because really, right, it would take very simple statements of, yeah, we watch you guys, we're proud of the marriage you're building and we see what you're doing and proud of you.
Right.
Like it would just take like 2 sentences
Right.
to go, okay, thank you.
They can't do
and
it.
And the spinning, they cannot do it. Mm-hmm. They cannot do it.
We'll go. Let's dive in line by line. But I think there is an aspect where we have to accept. Okay, this is where family is, and we have this mindset in Christianity of God can change a heart, God can do things, and I just find that's a great mindset, but I find that being a statement that works more against the healing journey than for it, because then it gets us into this place where we're trying to see something happen. We're trying to pray. We're trying to make it happen. And a lot of times with family, you have to let them be. You have to accept that's where they're at,
right,
and let it be. And God, this is in your hands. And I think that's kind of a more bottom line, if you want to get to the point. But let's kind of go back through this again. Okay, so they're talking about not being affected by false accusation. So basically we're looking for how to better equip ourselves to the mental and emotional spinning when accusation happens in life. Mm-hmm. And in the world of obsessiveness and compulsiveness, which we're both so very familiar with, this spinning thing is something that hits in a lot of different ways. We talk about like what happens when we walk away from conversations. Let's just kind of pause on that. It's probably one of the biggest things that you and I have had to navigate through. You leave an interaction with somebody and you spin. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that spinning?
Oh, gosh. I am definitely growing in this because I can still do it. I still can do it at times. But I have learned, one thing I've learned about helping to calm the spinning is telling myself too, you know what, you did your best in that moment. Mm-hmm. It's either, a lot of the times when this stuff happens, it comes out of the blue when, maybe you think you're having a great interaction with family or whatever, and then they say something that you're like, whoa, that came out of the blue. Mm-hmm. Or you're sensing something and then you leave. Why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say that? I've had to learn to, in giving myself grace, I did the best I could in that moment.
Yeah.
I did the best I could.
When that kicks up, we need, what is needed is a more compassionate response to yourself, because
100%.
When you feel like you're being fired at, like I said, there's kind of two kinds of accusation in this area. The ones where they're saying things, directing things at you. And then there's the ones that kind of come up within you in post-game analysis. And compassion is the key, because otherwise you put a pressure on yourself to have the most amazing conversation and respond the best way. And a lot of difficult conversations with people come out surprisingly. They come out in ways where you're kind of like shocked, or you're taken off guard. And then in the post, walking away from it, we expect ourselves to have responded better. Oh, I should have done this. I should have done that. We could do that all throughout life in everything if we allow ourselves to analyze in that way.
And if I may, if you are are in the journey of healing coming out of narcissistic parents, you have to remember a very big part of that journey is that you were trained to worry about your parents' feelings. So then as a child, your own feelings are suppressed because you're never asked about them. And the gauge and temperature in the house thermostat is always around how everyone else feels. So when you are interacting with someone, whether it's the narcissistic parents, a brother, a sister, whoever, they're all carrying a lot of that stuff too. And it's okay. This is where the compassion comes in the after talk to yourself, that your brain is coming out of neglect and abuse and what you've been trained in. And that's a big part of going, okay, I see my train. You're so worried about the other people's feelings. You don't have time in your mind to say, what's loving to me right now and how I respond to this.
Keep going. You're right on. No room for
it's a big thing to recognize.
No room right? for how do I
feel? You know. Do I want to get out of here right now? Your brain is wired to think about everyone else's emotions. I know this because this has been my journey.
Yeah. Both of us.
And stopping and paying attention to that, it takes time. It takes time to retrain your brain to go, wait, how do I feel about this? Do I want to still talk to this person right now? And then you feel like you're being unloving because you're trained to worry about everybody else's emotions.
Yep.
Which I think is great that you have an amazing spouse in each other because you do that for me, I do that for you. Right. Just when you say to me, you're all right, you did nothing wrong.
Right.
So that's a blessing right there in and of itself because that's huge that you can do that for each other. Just be patient and loving and kind. And you need that reminder. Your brain is wired in a certain way. When you grow up with that kind of neglect,
that's right,
and anything else on top of that, you need time and you need love and you need compassion for yourself.
Correct. Very, very good. Let me go back to the next. Really hurts badly for both of us when we are not understood, especially by toxic loved ones. And I think I highlighted that big time, but I think that's an important thing to realize. I'm not going to be understood by my family in the way that I want, in the way that I would like. It's not going to, I have to let that go. And if it does happen, God, you'll bring it about. But I have to let that go because then that sets the stage for how I'm going to navigate further steps. Because in that need to be misunderstood, you'll go back to family. You'll try to fix. You'll try to apologize.
Because you want their love.
Yeah. Talk it out some more. Or you're going, as Christians, we can become obsessive about, I got to repent. I got to make sure I do these things. I got to do all these.
And they need to see us as that Christian. They need to see how we're,
Correct. So it hurts to the point where our internal voices have been condemning us and saying, what if you really are X, Y, and Z? This leads to obsessive checking internally, an endless loop of validation, which we try not to feed very much. This area right here reveals a trauma triggering. This is a
trauma response.
This is a flashbacking kind of experience of your neglected childhood.
Right.
Let me just pause on that for a second. It's a flashbacking of your neglected childhood rising to the surface.
Yep.
And it clocks into obsessive compulsive for you because that's how you survived. You survive in neglect by, I'm going to do things just right. I got to make sure things are done right. I got to make sure I'm saying things okay, or I got to adjust, I got to fix. Then faith grid comes into this. And it's like, I got to do this before God, and I got to make sure I'm standing right before God. It's all like law, performance, pressure, all this stuff that doesn't give perspective and room. So in that moment, that's something I could really, really bring out. When you're triggering into, what if you really are X, Y, and Z? Well, let's say the accusation is you think you're better than everybody else. I don't know. What if I really...
Family likes to do that, especially when you add Christianity in there.
What if you really do think you're better than everybody else? You start spinning, whether it's something they said or you're walking away and just kind of, it's something that is an intrusive thought that rises to the surface. There's two aspects to the healing journey that I find helpful. One is what I call the gentle redirect, which is like, I'm going to be compassionate about what I'm sensing rising to the surface, what I'm hearing, let myself go through the emotion, redirect myself gently to loving compassion, because that's where I'm going to see what I need to see and what I need to learn and grow through. But secondly, sometimes it's just embracing that, well, if people feel that way, they feel that way. So they think I think I'm better than them. Well, if that's true, whatever. I'm on a journey, because me nitpicking this right now and trying to like quickly fix it, it's like I'm just basically describing my journey. So me like.
Meanwhile, I have a million scenarios going through my mind right now.
Well, feel free to pick one and throw it out. But it's like me fixing this. So for me, it is, I got to go back and talk this out again. I got to fix what I did. There's something. And then I realized in counseling, healing work, no, none of that. This is distracting you from actually healing through what you need to heal from. Because a lot of times it's you're around unsafe people. Not all the time, because you can be around safe people and still spin afterwards, right? And it shows your relationship with yourself. But we don't, in what you're expressing here, you don't feel safe around family, to be yourself, to feel validated in yourself. So you're going into, it's very strange when you go into family, you go with like your picnic clothes on, when really you should be going with your military gear on, not in a way of shooting, but in a way of like, okay, I'm in a war zone. And that's very hard to comprehend, because you're like, no, these are people I grew up with. This should be loving. It's Christmas, or it's the 4th of July. We should have a nice time. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, but you're in a war zone. That doesn't mean go after them. Doesn't mean attack. Doesn't mean argue. But just realize when you're spinning afterwards, you got hit with some bullets. Mm-hmm. You got hit with some stuff. You got hit with that passive aggressive, or that ignoring, or not even asking, so how are you?
That is, my gosh, what a statement.
This is so profound, right?
That is a profound statement.
So anywho, this leads to obsessive checking internally. This is trauma response here. You're checking. Yeah. Endless loop of validation. That's trauma coming up. That's your traumatic childhood pain rising to the surface, looking to be validated, and so it causes you to look for what you need to fix in your performance, because that's the training. Something in brokenness, you're the problem. That's why in all our victimization and trauma struggles, one of the chronic issues that comes out of it is self-blame. And folks, I'll just give you an inside scoop. This is a nightmare when you have this as a pastor. It's just a nightmare, because you're dealing with so many people that do not interact in healthy ways. And I remember night after night after night spinning about this person, spinning about this thing. And I'd have compulsions of things I felt I need to fix, and I got to go do something about this. Major place of breakthrough in my life. To starve? No, I'm not going to feed that. I'm going to let this be, and I'm going to actually feel through what I'm feeling through. The hurt, the pain. And then I was like, wow, I have like emptiness, neglect, brokenness, trauma stuff I've never really paid attention to. And here I am, teaching healing principles, but I'm in survival mode still. Right. Because I'm in an environment where I don't feel like I can truly be myself. And that perfectionism ratcheted up so tight, it wanted to suffocate me.
Right. And it's an interesting thing, just to stay on the ministry vein for a second, especially for pastors. You deliver a message, you pour your heart into something, you pour your heart out on the pulpit of delivering God's word, you're engaged emotionally, and 99.9% of the time, this has become a bad cycle, because right after the message is over, and now you should go connect with your church family, you get that one person that comes up and wants to bring something crazy to you, go at you, attack you. It's right when you're vulnerable. Yeah. So now we have, we have all these things where there's a lot of mental illness on the rise. And I understand why after service, pastors are like, I got to go. And then people get offended. The church family gets offended. Why isn't the pastor interacting with us? Right. Well, it's not safe. And it's all feeding into each other.
Right.
It's all feeding into each other.
That shares a good lead into the picture of why the church struggles with so much dysfunction. We've created this atmosphere. It's easy to kind of go, well, churches are unsafe. Well, we've been on the other side. And I can see where the people feel very unsafe. And so then there's these protective mechanisms. And we have this world we live in of, kind of like leadership surrounding themselves with these highly protective walls and stuff like that. And then the same with us towards them. And it just, like you said, it heightens mental health issues. It's making us not know how to reason with each other.
We don't know how to relate. We don't know how to interact. Yep. And, obviously stemming from family stuff.
Yep. So we stand by one another patiently in love, and we fight this together. And I think where you can fight together as a couple is there's going to be times where you're like, I need to talk it out, right? Then there's other times where you have to look at each other and go, we're not going to keep spinning about this. It's going to try, but we're not. There's wisdom in understanding how to support each other. There's times where I'm spinning and you encourage me, like, just let it be. Right. Let it be. You got to redirect. But this isn't a black and white thing, like guilt confession or like confessing out stuff. And people can do that as a compulsion. Certainly. It's not a black and white rule that then you never express anything again. Right. And so sometimes it just takes wisdom and working together of like knowing what do you need. And sometimes you need to just be able to talk it out.
Right. Because people are not nice and people are going to lie about, it's tough out there.
But do you understand what I'm saying in that like application as a couple?
Yeah. 100%. I love that they have each other for this though. It's great.
Yet we notice we can spin at times, we catch each other. So I think that's good. We acknowledge it feels quite lonely. Maybe this is just part of the process. Yeah, that loneliness is it may be out of you don't have healthy connections now, but it really stems from the neglect of childhood.
Yeah. Do you want to be friends? Because we can.
Okay, so I would like to address this part. We continually forgive the accusers, bless them, release them, and we had to go no contact with a few of our truly narcissistic parents. Yet the pain and confusion spinning over the verbal accusation still remain years after. Okay, this first sentence here, we continually forgive the accusers, bless them, release them, and we had, I want to, those statements there. We have a pattern in Christianity. It's well-founded, but I think it gets out of context. When we look at woundedness, well-meaning Christians run to forgiveness as quick as possible, right? And I have the potential of being misunderstood here, so I'm just gonna go right through this. We jump to forgiving without actually working through in ourselves what happened. It's like it hurts. I better forgive because God will then not forgive me, and then I will have things come upon me. I'll be cursed or my family. So I better forgive. I got to release. I do sense here, and I'm not saying you're being. I'm exaggerating my delivery, but I do get a sense of like, let's make sure we forgive, release them, and it's like, yes, that's a part of the journey, but you also have to. Allow yourself to be angry and to go through anger, where we work through understanding how things affect us rather than rushing to the right thing.
Like, get it out, get the bitterness out, get it out of me. I don't want it there. Right. Like,
yeah, a lot of believers come to me and they're like, yeah, I had this thing, I was abused, or this happened, or this trauma, and I forgave them. So I don't know what the problem is. We've kind of taught people that if you forgive, you're just going to be bulletproof and you're not going to have any lingering effect of this. And really it's a journey. It's like, allowing ourselves to walk through what we're feeling. And I feel that the OCD goes into what you did wrong, what you need to do, what you need to fix. doesn't actually let you see what is it that you're actually feeling and what it needs tender, loving attention from God, or even as you're processing it, how you relate to yourself.
I would say too, I believe that the church uses this forgiveness for, I don't want to be misunderstood, but we use forgiveness as a reason to not do anything.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it on. I'm going to forgive. I've forgiven my husband for cheating on me 10 times. It will temporarily relieve. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, that you should leave your husband. Okay. But we do these things where we put, I'm going to just forgive. I'm going to forgive. I forgive them. Then they punch you again. I'm going to forgive. We use this a lot of the time. I'm not saying that these people are doing it. I'm saying the church at large does this.
Yeah.
That we use it as, it shows you haven't worked through the emotions of it all and really loved yourself to go, what do I want to do now? The church uses this to do nothing. As a righteous, I've forgiven.
Right. Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? We do this.
Yeah.
I've done this.
I think
if the rest of y'all are good and you don't do it, that's amazing.
I would say most,
I think a lot of people.
most of my Christian upbringing was doing that in a sense of, I don't know that I felt like a righteous thing, and maybe I just heard what you were saying. I think it was like more, I would rush to forgive. That's just found. I'd rush to forgive, like do the right thing.
Right. Well, righteous meaning right standing. Oh, I need to stand right, instead of like, sometimes the right standing is taking a stand to say, you're not going to abuse me anymore.
Yeah.
We are terrified to do this because it goes back to
Right.
parents. Not dealing with anything. So you never knew where you stand, and you're the problem.
Right. When you constantly are beating yourself up over issues, that's revealing childhood stuff. It goes back to you. You're the fault. You're blame. All that stuff goes back to that. So, we've had to go no contact with a few of our truly narcissistic parents. Now, here's the thing. We only have 2 biological parents. So if it's a few of our narcissistic parents, plural, well, there's 4 of them.
Maybe there's some steppies in there.
Yeah, there's some steppies. My bad.
You know what? If you've done that, good for you. A lot of people cannot get to that stage. If you've done it, good for you.
What I was going to say, plural. It may mean all of them. Well, here's the thing: if you have a narcissist, you have a codependent. So if one parent is narcissistic and the other one's not, the other one's codependent to the narcissism. It's like we got to play with.
So it's all.
Well, you made your mother upset, and you should probably go apologize.
Don't rock the boat while you're here.
Yeah, that's the twistedness, and Jesus tells us to love each other. So
you've hurt your father's feelings.
So the pain and the confusion spinning over verbal accusation still remains years after. So I think what's helpful is recognizing the problem is not the problem. So when you're spinning, what you're spinning about is not the problem. So if you can give yourself grace, it's okay, I'm feeling this. That's not the issue. That you can begin to allow God to give room to understand what's really going on. I never felt safe to begin with in that conversation. I feel misunderstood, and I'm always trying to fix the misunderstood. I feel, because when you feel accused, we live in a world where accusation seems to get the upper hand. Like if you get accused, somebody could be bold-faced lying and they spread it, and now that's spread. And we live in a culture where people don't think things through, wait it out. We see
Sorry, babe.
we see a headline, we believe it. We believe it about, you see a headline about a megachurch pastor. You now believe that as truth. You see, or a small church pastor, or a person in your church, or a person at your job. You hear it, you just believe it. And then that gets the upper hand. So there is a big aspect of recognizing culturally that out of accusation, you're guilty, and that's it. And many people have been deeply, deeply hurt by stories said about them, and they really don't have much room to explain. And when it's church and ministry,
We had that.
You have multiple layers. So you have a person who's upset about this person. Okay, person A is upset to me about person B. Really, they should go to person B, but whatever. Or maybe they're bringing up something that's concerning. I have a safe relationship with B of working through things. I'm not going to share with person A all the things we've talked about. Mm-hmm. So person A accuses me. That's it.
Do you
want there's like, what do you do? And this is this, on one hand, sounds very frightening. Another hand shows we have a long way to go in like how we respond to jumping into the accusation lane. Because when you jump into the accusation lane, and Christians love to do this, we take all the famous preachers and we just like, tear them down. We think we know how bad they are and this and that. We don't know them. We've never met them. We haven't even been under their work or even involved with them. But we know, we have it down. When you get in the lane of accusation, man, it's, where you start accusing others. I don't want to live in that.
No.
Because
and we know, I don't know if you want to, we do have a story that's the lady that passed away in our church. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean,
we don't have to go quickly. I mean, we don't have to go deep into it, but it was out of our control. We had a woman in our church pass away, and she put us in her will. And there's a lot of details to this, but her family was convinced that we manipulated her.
Oh, it was awful. Was awful.
This was probably one of the worst things that has happened to us.
Yeah, that was a traumatic season because I didn't know that even happened.
Right.
And all these accusations, came to the surface, and we got through it, but we took a lot of hits.
There was nothing we could do about it.
Yeah.
There was literally nothing we could do. And not only did this affect her extended family, which was not in her life, and that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
The insane lies that they came up with there was nothing we can do. And then it affected a couple people in our church too, that started to go, well, wait a second.
What happened? Right. And it's, very difficult. Yeah.
There was literally nothing we could do. And we went into this very naive. We did not know how sucker punched we were going to get with all this.
There's been sorry, I didn't mean to jump in.
No, I want you to go ahead.
There's because I feel like when this brings up that season was very, very difficult because what was accused was actually the opposite of what actually happened. Mm-hmm. And then, but I look back at like when we got married and left the church I was working at, when you move on from a church, you try to be honoring and you try to like, it's not that we did everything perfect. It's like you try to move on and try to be honoring, but there's stories that get thrown around and created that then follow you. And you, every now and then it kind of comes back your way. And it's like, I felt the need for a long time I wore myself out trying to explain, well, this is what really happened. And I'm telling these long stories. And here's the thing that went about. And I realized that in life, there's a lot of these misunderstood accusations that you have to go, got to give this to you. I don't know. I don't know what else to do. Cause I had, I value integrity. Right. I value it to an obsessive standpoint,
which made us even more.
God has had to heal that from me. And part of healing that is embracing the flawed aspects of the world that we live in. And the war that goes on emotionally and relationally between believers. Now, granted, those things have given me a lot of grace and compassion for what people go through because I pick up on seasons and what people have been through, and I pick up on that side of the life and the journey. But going back to the lady that passed away, that was a punch to the gut. It was and even the whole financial aspect of it wasn't even a blessing. It was very tainted for sure.
Yeah, it was.
And without getting into all the details of it. Mm-hmm. But I think in the midst of that, we're both trying to navigate through, like, what does it look like relating to our families in this, and then they don't understand. They're not going to understand. Right. They're not going to understand what we've done. Like to understand, wait, you're going to leave that church position over there and you're going to wait. So what's your 401k? What's your, okay, you're not, wait, what are you doing? You know, I mean, there's some parts of it not understanding that I actually understand. So anyways, how to get on that, to get on that trail.
Yeah, no, I figured we would go ebb and flow here, boo.
In other words, we're looking for tools on how to stop defending oneself and proving oneself against both false accusation in thoughts and real accusations with people. I think starving the compulsion of that is important. Of like, this is a drug that I go to that I've got to let go, and because now I have to actually heal what needs healing. And when I go prove myself, because that's been a kryptonite, like, bind in my journey of responding, of answering things, proving things. And I came to absolute exhaustion to realize that's not going to serve the journey. So I think that,
and I think, if I may, I don't even like that term, real accusation.
Good one.
Because that's still, you're accusing yourself too. Let's say let's take something minor. You were rude to somebody and they are mad at you. It still goes back to the heart of the relationship and how it still goes back to your need to want to interact in a loving, connected flow with someone for them to even, I don't like that, a real accusation. No.
Right.
Something real would come about in a hey, can I just talk to you for a second? I felt like real ends up in that kind of way.
Yeah,
I'm not explaining how I want
when things get under the spirit of accusation, it's not going to go in a healed direction.
Right.
So it's like, what did you say? Rude? Like if somebody's rude?
Let's say they were rude to family members.
So there's two avenues. Like, let's say we're talking about this, right? Accusation. It's like this, you're rude and you act like this. You're better than everybody else. So it's a condemning kind of spirit in how we're dealing. That doesn't produce healing. You probably, there's some room and avenue where a straightforward like that could help in the context of loving relationship. But really it's, it'd be helpful if you could be kinder in how you say things.
Right.
See that just simple shift? There's a different spirit behind it. And I think in accusation, we're focused on the evil. We're obsessed about fixing it. We get into strife. We get into trying to defend ourselves. And I find the kinder that you are to yourself, the more that's going to drown out the spirit of accusation over you, because obsessiveness is
I would say this too,
pulling on that,
right? And how you're even saying, because you have had to help me too with this, because let's say I have an interaction with someone and I feel like I came across, because I'm still working through my own insecurities, feeling secure in relationship. I'm always hyper analyzing how somebody else is feeling about me, about what I just said. What do they mean? I do, because I don't feel safe in relationship with a lot of people. And I have said to you, I don't know, should I say something to them? I don't know if that came across okay. And you're like, no, you're good.
Right.
Because I can hear what they're saying. Like, should we remain silent against
we look for the rule.
Even if there's a real thing, sometimes it's better to do nothing.
We have to learn to let things be because of our compulsive nature of dealing with things. You have to learn to let things sit. We get very focused on every little action and every little thing, and making sure every little thing is analyzed and scrutinized, and it'll make you feel just so all over the place. So you figure out why people abuse us or accuse us wrongly. That's the trauma response.
Yeah.
What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? You got the shame, you got the guilt, you got the self-hatred. And that just inflames the spinning.
Yeah.
And this is something that we're
very familiar with.
We're very familiar with, and we find a lot of healing. And I would say I've found a new level of healing in my journey in the past 5 years of like moving through some of those thought patterns to not focus on what this is all shame-based stuff that gets me focused on looking at me in a very, very condemning way versus letting myself heal through and get a new perspective. Because love does that. Love redirects you from, no, this isn't about what's wrong with you. This isn't about that. It's about you working through this. I'm with you. We're going to walk through this.
Yeah.
And I think this number 2 example, the spinning, we're still in this journey. I can have this in any context. I can have it. I can have it in a coaching session afterwards. Did I say? Should I have said that? Did I? I can say that in a conversation. I have a thought. You should have said something a certain way. Here's what I would say. A lot of times we feel this when we're trying to be vulnerable. We're trying to have connection. And I've said this to you a lot. I said it to myself a lot. When you interact with someone and you try to be vulnerable or you try to make connection and you walk away and you feel kind of slimy or you feel kind of like, the assessment we make is, I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have talked.
The person thinks I'm weird. I offended them. I shouldn't have this. What do they think? Right.
And I've developed a new mindset of freedom, which is, no, that's a signal you took a step, and celebrate that.
You just said it to me the other day.
Because I remember so many times I'd open up about what I do in helping people, and I get the dead stare. Or I would share like vulnerable stuff of things I've worked through and healed through, and get the dead stare. And that's excruciating. Where's my crickets? That's the worst sound in the world, right? Because you do that, and I get a sense here you want to have connection, right? And it's
you have a deep need to be loved, and it's okay, and you want to feel safe, and it's okay, and you want to have that exchange with somebody. We get it. It's all okay. That's okay.
Yeah, and if you have to go no contact with unsafe people, you have to. It may be for a season, may be for a long time. Here's what that space provides. Because a lot of what we need, it's not just protecting yourself from them, right? We think of like, I'm protecting myself from the danger. That's kind of level 1. Sometimes you need the space to actually see what needs healing.
Right. And see.
And when you're in the chaos of narcissism or addiction or codependency, you can't see straight.
No, and it takes a long time. You think you see, and then you go, oh, wow, there was layers there of stuff that it's a long journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's okay. Because it takes time to recognize the dysfunction. It takes time to be aware of how it affected you, how it affected your thinking, and then there needs to be room to grieve. This is a lot of what I'm walking people through.
That grieving part is so big.
Yeah, because the grieving part, when we get locked into what we've talked about today, we never actually get to the grieving because we're focusing on the survival tactics of trying to feel safe and trying to fix. And it's like you never grieved childhood, loss, neglect, abuse, and dysfunction, however you want to name it. And so I think that I think from like a resource standpoint, I think it can be helpful to utilize our materials on exposing the rejection mindset, because it just kind of help you to see the wound areas that get inflamed. Because like I told you, in those moments where like I've not being misunderstood has sometimes spun me out so bad. And I've had to like at times just give myself space and like go, okay, Father, this is what I'm feeling so blatantly misunderstood, not seen. I feel invisible right now. I know this is rejection. And I don't judge it. I don't beat it up, but I see, I know it's at work. Father, I give this to you. I give this to you because you're a dad that meets me where I'm fatherless. You're a father who meets me when I feel no one sees, you see. And I also know that in this state I'm in, things can get really distorted. So I feel it, but I'm not going to serve it and react to it quickly. Does that make sense? And at times that's saved my journey, where it's helped me to recalibrate. Okay, I'm all right. And then accepting, this is where everybody's at. This is where everybody's at. Look, they don't pay attention. They don't ask. They don't this. They don't that. I accept that. They're in their dysfunction. They're in their narcissism. They're in their codependency. I accept that. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to live my journey. And so your decision of no contact, some contact, few contact, everybody has to make that decision for themselves of what that looks like. But whatever you do, provide that compassionate look at yourself.
Yeah. And people like you guys, I'm venturing to say, because Mark and I have been in this place. We are very loving, and I'm sure you're very loving and accepting of other people's goofiness, their rudeness, all kinds of stuff. The exchange is when you say to yourself, I was goofy in that. I'll try again next time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's scary.
Right. I never gave myself the room to actually feel through things.
Right.
I was so focused on, I said that if you have a bad inner critic that has a post game analysis that's very critical, I know that because I feel like I'm a world record holder in that struggle. So I understand. And what has helped the most is just kindness to it, and just letting that whatever's spinning float through. And then I start to see what's really going on. Oh, they think I'm this, they think I'm that. Okay, all right. I'm just going to let that float through. What's really happening? I never felt heard growing up or whatever. Like you start to, okay, that's what needs healing, not this fixing thing I'm trying to spin about. So anyways, I hope we solved all your problems today.
Listen, we tried our hardest.
You said in the last sentence there, we acknowledge that this is false burden bearing, codependency. We're both healing in our toxic family experience.
That's awesome.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think where I took it today is a little bit deeper in the underlying, like why do we become codependent? Why do we false burden bear, take false responsibility, right? It's usually out of a lot of stuff that we talked and shared about today.
Yeah.
If this episode was a blessing to your life, would you consider supporting us and supporting the journey, supporting the ministry work? You can go to markdejesus.com, click on the donate button for a one-time donation, or you can become a regular monthly supporter. As a plan of action, consider exposing the rejection mindset. If you are in the area where you get a lot out of the materials on compulsive, obsessive issues, I have a whole page, a resource page, markdejesus.com/OCD help. And there's so much there that can help equip, enrich, and give some insight to your journey. But Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be back next time to share more insights of the healing and freedom journey. So we pray the richest blessings on your life. We pray that what we shared added grace to your life.
Thank you, everyone.
In the meantime, we're out.